Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to another lecture in this series of the Palo Alto training. And in this lecture, we will be talking about the next interface deployment type, which is the tap interface. So you have seen in the previous videos, we have covered the vWire mode, and we have covered the this is the vWire section, and we have covered the layer 2 mode, L2 mode, which is the this section. So we have gone through these two deployments. Now we will go through the tap interface mode. Okay, so we'll use this interface, and then we have this switch where we have to basically configure the monitor session, and we'll define the source and the destination interface. Basically the destination is interface is going to be the interface where the Palo Alto tap interface is going to be connected, and the source could be any of these devices, or the, I mean, it depends on your requirements. Now, as you know that the tap interface mode is basically used in an environment where you have kind of POC, or you can have a pre-migration setup, basically where you are on a, say, a legacy firewall, or maybe on another vendor, and you want to move to the Palo Alto firewalls. And before moving to the Palo Alto firewalls, you want to see what kind of traffic is there in your organization, and with those what do you say, logs, you can basically develop the rules that is needed once you have the Palo Alto in place. So this is kind of a monitoring type of deployment, where the switch basically sends the duplicate, or a mirror of the traffic to the Palo Alto firewall. All right, so in this case we will have these two devices, the endpoints. These are my Linux systems, and it has the DHCP from my management, what do you say, network. And as my management network is really my home router, and that is running a DHCP server, and these two devices are getting the IP from that DHCP, as well as the default gateway and other what do you say, configurations like the DNS and everything. So once I have the DHCP IP here, and then that means these two PCs will have access to the internet, and then I can browse some traffic from there. And I will define these are the source, and you can define as the RX or the TX, or maybe both on these source interfaces, and then send that particular traffic on the interface where the tap interface of the Palo Alto is connected. So while these two are browsing, or having any type of what do you say, uh, traffic on these PCs, all of that is going to be mirrored and sent to the Palo Alto. And then on the Palo Alto, now this is kind of you can say not even transparent. It is just analyzing those traffic, and it does not have any control on it, and you can just see those traffic in the monitor section of the Palo Alto. And you can then go ahead and maybe define some rules, or just provide a report, right, to the client, basically saying that this is the things that we can do, these are the applications that are running in your environment. And you can just suggest the kind of security that will be added once you move on to the Palo Alto firewall. All right, so this is the whole idea. So we will go ahead with the configurations. I have my Palo Alto device already turned on, and let me see. So this is the setup. We have the ETH11, where we will configure that interface as the tap interface, and then we have to configure all this. I think already I have the DHCP enabled on this, and it should have an IP address from the 192 series, or you can keep it on 10, and then you should have a NATing device here, right? But in my case, it is my DHCP, so I will change this. It should be in my 192 range, so I just update this. 192.168.1.0/24. So I'll get an IP address from this range on these two endpoint devices, which are Linux. And yeah, let's go ahead with the configuration. I'll just wipe this device first of all, so that I don't have any configurations there for these two. All right, so I'm here already. So let me just minimize this, and if I go here and I do an if config here, I should have an IP address which is 1.53. Now that my switch is turned off, let me turn it on, and then if I go back to my Linux here, so basically you have to go to the network settings in the Linux, and then you have to just enable use DHCP and apply the settings and then exit. All right, so this is the only configuration that you need to do on your Linux. And here also I'll go to the network, enable DHCP, apply and exit. All right, so if I go here and when I see my switch, okay, it's just coming up, and I'll just do one thing. I'll change the settings so that you will be able to see the I will just increase the font. Yeah, so this should be clear to you guys. All right, so I think, yeah, my switch is up, enable 150. So this is having no, what do you say, interface status. So you can see that this is part of the same VLAN. No configurations here as of now. We will configure the interfaces with the monitor session, and on the end devices. So this is one device which has an IP of 1.53. so I'll do a ping to 8.8.8, and it is reachable. Even the DNS resolution will be happening. If I do a ping to google.com, should resolve, and then, yeah, so that means if I go to my browser and then try to access internet through the browser, it should be able to reach to my, yeah, so I'm able to access Google. Same goes for the other one as well. Yeah, I think I'm accessing the same thing. Yeah, so I'm here, and if I go to the terminal, if I do an if config, so I have 125 here, and if I do and if I browse to, let's say, google.com, yeah, so both my end devices are able to reach internet, right? So next comes the Palo Alto firewall itself, and yeah, so I am, I think, ready to log in. All right, yes. So from the previous configurations, we have two vWire interfaces, we have two layer 2 interfaces, and then I will go and access the Palo Alto firewall on the 201 IP management IP. So I'll access using my credentials. All right, so if you go to the monitor section, you would not see anything as of now, because all the segments, the vWire segment, the L2 segment, is as of now not transmitting any traffic, and also the tab interface is not configured, right? So now we'll go ahead and configure the switch first, and then we'll configure the Palo Alto. So let's go to the switch here. Now on the switch, I will define these two as the source interface, or I can define this as the source interface. So anything outgoing and incoming on the G00 should be mirrored and sent to the tap interface, which is the G01 as the destination, or I can define all three. Let's go ahead and define these two as the source and this as G01 as the destination on the switch. Okay, let's go here. So for this you just have to type monitor and then session. Let's define a number, and then if you hit a question mark, first is the source and then you have to define the source and I think the interface, yes, or you can have a VLAN itself. So for in my case I will have the uh, source interface, or I can define a VLAN as well. Anyways, you got the idea, right? So let's go with the interface itself. Gigabit Ethernet 1 0/2. Okay, and then you can go with a question mark, sorry, a comma, and then you can define, I think, just the other interface G0/3. So this is my source, and then after that you have to define the direction, right? Is this the receiving traffic that you want to monitor, or the transmitted traffic, or both? So in my case I will say both. After that you hit enter. So this is your source. Now likewise you will have to configure the destination. Okay, make sure that monitor session value is the same, right? 1, and then you set the destination, and then you say the interface, and then gigabit Ethernet 0/1 and hit question mark, and you can encapsulate this thing, but as of now I'll just keep it as is, and then I will what do you say, write these changes on the switch. So our switch is configured. Now let's move on to the Palo Alto and configure the interface ETH1/1. So here you have to just create a zone first of all. Okay, let's define a zone, add, and then this is my tap zone, and you have to keep the type as tap. Okay, that's it, you don't have to do anything else in the zone. Then you go and configure the interface. So this is my ETH1/1. Click on that and I'll say this is my tap zone, like this, and then interface type is tap, and then you have the security zone as the tap zone. Now you have advanced, nothing much here, right? You can bring the link state to up manually or auto down. In our case we'll keep it as the auto. Okay, once you have done this, then you have to configure a simple policy here. Okay, so the policy would be simple. I can define this as my tap zone policy. All right, rule you will keep universal, and then go to the source. Only catch is the source zone and the destination zone is going to be the same tap zone. Okay, so we'll just keep it as is. You can define the source address, destination address, but I'll keep everything as default. You can define all these service URL categories, application, right, and action is obviously allow and okay. Now you can set profile as well, but I want to monitor all the traffic, right? So I can log the session at start and end both, and hit this, and then I will commit. All right, so this is queued, and I go to the monitor and I'll wait for this to be what do you say, completed. So if I go here and I go here, I should say show jobs all, and I should see this as pending, and it's on 0%, still pending, 98%, almost done, 99. All right, almost there. Once this is committed, we will go ahead and generate some traffic from our end devices. Okay, Now this is done. I mean, there will be some traffic already going on, but let's just do something here. YouTube, YouTube. I'll go here, and on my other device here I will say Facebook. Okay, so this is fine. Let's generate some pings, different kinds of traffic will generate. Ping 8.8.8.8 kind of things. Okay, fine. So this much should be enough. Let's go to the traffic section, and after some time you should be able to see the logs here. These are the traffic logs. Even you should see some session. If you go to session browser, you should see some traffic. And yeah, you can see the YouTube. So you can see that the Palo Alto is able to identify the applications that are being used in your environment right here. Now based on this, you should be able to provide a report to a client, or even create some rules that allow these particular traffic or applications that are already being used in your environment. All right, even if you go to threat here, so it will tell you that zone and destination obviously will be the same tab zone, source IP addresses, destination, application, port. So you can see all these things that are very useful information to get an insight of the existing network that you are going to work upon. Right, so this is how you set up the tab interface in a Palo Alto firewall. So as you can see, in the same box we were able to configure all the three different types of interfaces, even the fourth interface type, which is the sub interface type, and then there is another one which is the HA. You will see in the future redundancy section, or the module of the HA. We will configure the HA type interface, but the next one, which is the sub interface, can be also configured in the same box. So yeah, so hope you have learned something useful in this lecture, and for this lecture this would be all, and I will see you in the next lecture. Until then, take care, bye bye.